All right, welcome back to Waste Some Time with Jason Green. I am Jason Green, reminding you, brand new interviews every Monday and Friday right here on YouTube. You got to hit the subscribe button so you can find out about all those things, support the channel. Also, maybe you think you can ask better questions of the guests than I can. All you have to do is go down to the Patreon link in my description, and you can sign up, and then you can ask the next questions. Speaking of guests, we've got a really great one today. One of the greatest guitar players of all time. Fortunately, I've got him on mute right now because I know that he would have something witty to say. They call him Mr. Scary. I wouldn't call him Mr. Punctual, but we're going to go with Mr. Scary. George Lynch is here. We are going to talk about his brand new album. This is the first instrumental record, full length, in his entire career. It's called Seamless. It's available for pre-order right now through Rat Pak Records. We can talk about it. We're going to find out how to order it. All that and more with Mr. Scary after this. All right, speaking of wasting time, George just did like 10 minutes of shtick with me, and then I told him we weren't recording. So let's get right to it. George Lynch.
You know, you're the equivalent of when you go into a recording studio with an amateur engineer and you plug in and you start just blazing over the track, and then the guy just lets you go, and you go, and like 10 minutes later, you're exhausted, you've just like expressed the angst of human existence through your fingers and your music, and you're just like, oh my God, that's it. I finally played the solo I've been waiting my whole life to play. How was that? And they go, oh, we weren't recording. And that's you.
You know, George, the problem, though, is sometimes people say things that they don't want others to know about.
Yeah, there's this thing called editing. They just came up with it.
We can fix it in post. I understand.
No, and the other thing is you had me on mute because you didn't want to hear anything witty or wise. I mean, why not? Is that not what your show's about?
Not. Have you seen it?
No.
George, I told you that if you didn't do it, we were going to have the Great Cat on today, and you didn't even know who the Great Cat was.
You explained some chick that used to play naked or something?
Well, like in underwear, and she went to Juilliard, and she's a classically trained musician, but she believes that she's a reincarnation of Beethoven, and she screams like Sam Kinison, though.
Oh, you should marry her.
I'm good, George, but you'll have to look it up. So, George, I'm glad you're able to do it.
Instead of the gray, what's her name?
The Great Cat.
The gray. Okay, I thought you said the gray cat. So you got the gray cat, you got the silver fox.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was asking you, George, when we were off the air, but now what the hell? We could do it again and just be as magical as it was. I want to know the appropriate age to stop dyeing, to stop dyeing your hair, because I dye my hair at least every 2 weeks, George, and I want to know, when should I call it quits?
When the curtains stop matching the carpet.
It's probably, yeah, I'm probably due. You're a happily married man, George, though. So, you know, I think your wife is very accepting of it. You're not out on the market like I
am. Well, yeah, but my job is to pretend that I am.
Yeah, that's true. I get that. So what will you?
But I'm finding that I'm appealing to the same-sex kind of thing more than the opposite sex. Because there's a lot of guys at our shows.
Yes, that's been a problem throughout your career, George.
I know. A lot of not estrogen. A lot of testosterone, not a lot of
testosterone. Yeah. Well,
I've actually been hiring. I went to the same acting agency in New York City that Donald Trump used to get his fake AstroTurf crowd when he came down the escalator to hold signs and pretend like they were excited about seeing him. I hired those same people, actors, but just women, to come to our shows to kind of add 10-20% more what's that hormone?
Estrogen. Yeah. Well, that's smart. George,
equity, it's called.
George, when I was getting ready to do this interview, I thought, there's no way George Lynch is going to want to sit in his house and yap with people. And then I realized you do these things. And I think, though, a lot of people don't know that you've got a very good sense of humor. Bands that I've worked with, when we brought you in to play, would ask me, is George serious? People are intimidated by you, George, because they can't tell. You're like this. You have this Stephen Wright sort of dry humor to you.
Yeah, I've been told. I got to watch that because people don't get me sometimes, and they get offended, and I feel bad. And I'm just trying to really be funny for entertainment purposes. Like I never lie about anything that, well, I'm saying never, but generally don't lie about things important that would be damaging in any way. But I do lie. Well, we need a new word, not lie.
Mhm.
Something not as nefarious as lie. But I embellish and make shit up just for entertainment purposes to make people's day brighter and distract them and make them laugh, or make myself laugh or whatever.
I get the impression, George, a lot of your humor is to make yourself laugh, because I've seen you say things with very small of an audience, and I think you're the only one who's amused by it.
Hey, if I can amuse one person, I win. That's what God put me on earth for. Was to, I mean, I'm an atheist. I shouldn't say that, but was to entertain people by any means possible. Whether it's by pretending to be a really great guitar player when I don't even know how to read music, or have real dry, sarcastic humor to kind of entertain people, but also kind of belittle them and put them down at the same time.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't know when they're the victim of it. I had Jeff Pilson on the show, and I asked him, was George always like this? Because I wanted to know if in the 80s, and he said, yeah, you were pretty much always the same.
I was worse. I've learned to tone it down. And I don't pride myself in it, but it's just who we are. There's things about all of us. I mean, you can't really get around yourself, that's just the way it is. So I try to temper it a little bit with awareness and try to be cognizant of people's feelings. But I don't have a bad heart. I just, I want the best for everyone, and I just want to be a force of good. So it comes off like that sometimes.
I was in a car with you here in Las Vegas. You were doing a show, and we're in a parking lot at a hotel, Santa Fe Casino, I think. And the entrance, the said, "Do not enter." And I said, "George, I don't think we're supposed to enter through here." And you said, in a very serious, dry way, that I don't think that applies to us at this time.
Right. Or to your ass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had a feeling that was going to be part of this. Yeah.
Which is what I should have said, which I'm very disappointed in myself.
We'll do it again sometime, George. And then
I'm glad I got a chance to update that and correct it.
Yeah, see, you're always updating, remixing, improving.
Hold on, I just dropped the pick of Destiny.
Okay, well,
I'll have to disappear for a second.
I somehow thought that George was going to play it straight today, but no.
They don't make these anymore. This is made by a wizard in a hollow mountain in, like some land that doesn't exist anymore. So
you've gone through a lot of different picks in your career, George. You were using coins at one point.
Yeah, but I mean, that was a kind of a Brian May, Billy Gibbons thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I did. Breaking the Chains, I used it a lot. In the 70s and the early 80s, I used it a lot.
Then I feel like it breaks
strings.
Yeah.
They break strings.
Yeah, that's what I would think. George, we could sit here and bullshit all day, but we got to get to some important stuff first. I want to talk about the upcoming record, but I also, after that, I want you to help me with some history, because you've got a bit of a confusing history. I had the guys from Rough Cut on recently, and I realized that all the guys from Rough Cut are involved with Rat, Quiet Riot, and Dio in some way or another. Your career with Dokken parallels with Rat quite a bit, and unfortunately at times Ozzy Osbourne. I want to get into all that with you, but first we got to mention Seamless. So George, first question, what took you so long to make an all-instrumental record?
Well, I made a partially instrumental record in the early 90s called Sacred Groove, and then I made an all-instrumental record. I recorded an all-instrumental record called Orchestral Mayhem, which is went a little under the radar. Not a lot of people were aware of it, but I didn't really count that because they weren't compositions that I wrote. I was just hired really to come in and blow all over this stuff. Really, I mean, it was me playing leads, but I wasn't playing the rhythms, and I didn't write the songs. Anyways, this is the first original fully instrumental record that I've done.
Yeah, and
the reason it took so long is because it's one of those magnum opus things that you feel like the time is never right, because you need so many resources and so much time to really pull off this masterwork, you know. And so that's why I never pulled the trigger, because I was never at the right time.
You've always reinvented yourself, George. I get the feeling that you would get bored if you just played, you know, hard rock music in a band your whole career. You've always done something different and changed. And of course, I feel like, you know, obviously you're a guitar hero, and people love to see you do clinics and shred. And I feel like that kind of pays the bills, you know, obviously. But that also supports your being able to do so many other things, because your projects like Shadow Train are completely different from you. But I think they're really close to your heart.
Well, the messaging Shadow Train was definitely close to my heart. I wrote a lot of the lyrics and melodies on that one, and I'm not a singer, but I cared so much about the messaging that you know, it was labor of love, really, and I couldn't escape it. I mean, the stuff was just, you know, it was just flowing out of me. It's the first time that's ever happened in my life like that, where I really had something to say. A lot of times when I get done with a record, I said it all guitar wise and music, you know, instrumentally. But when it came down to lyrics, not a lot of times I really have a whole lot to say in any kind of way that sounds cool, you know. A lot of my lyrics would be kind of substandard, you know, according to the singers I was working with anyways. And I tend to agree with them. I'm not a poet. But in the case of Shadow Train and Shadow Nation, I was very inspired and gave a shit, and you know, I was very, very passionate, and am passionate about, you know, the Native Americans. And you know, it wasn't just a project about Native American issues. I mean, that was the vehicle, but it was really about human nature and the human conditions in a larger sense. So I think about that a lot, like most of us, and I had something to say about that, and that's challenging because. Again, I think you really need to be a poet to convey that stuff in any kind of way that's digestible, where people just don't scoff and like, oh, what's, you know, stick to playing guitar. And so it was, you know, I get a lot of that, you know. So
yeah, and you had a movie for that as well. I mean, this was definitely a long labor of love for you.
yeah, it was 7 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Shadow Nation was the film, the documentary film, and Shadow Train was the band.
Mm-hmm.
That's in film, and traveled along with us when we, you know, in the process of making the film. The band was involved in all that, and it was really a wonderful experience. You know, it was hard, but it was, you know, I had some of my kids out with me at various times, and you know, we were. I mean. You don't bond and get friendships, you know, like this very often in life, where you're down on the ground in the dirt dealing with important issues and working together like a team. I mean, it's really it was a beautiful experience. And then, you know, it ended, and that's how life is, you know. Kind of,
Yeah.
Whenever I talk to anybody that was involved with that, they usually have just really wonderful things to say about it. Like that was one of the great events in my life, you know, and it was for me as well.
Yeah, I'm going to put a link to that because I think people would like to see it and definitely see a different side of your playing, and see a really strong message as well in the movie. So we'll link that. George, how many kids do you have?
That's a good question. You ask hard questions, dude.
Yeah, I know.
A lot of other interviewers, they're like, you know, whatever, but you're like fucking bam.
Mm-hmm. I studied with Geraldo Rivera, George.
Yeah, you got me on that one. That's a gotcha question, they call it.
That is, yeah, I got it.
Okay, we got Natasha, oldest daughter, Sean, my oldest son, Ricky, adopted, Mariah, Devin, Dakota, 6.
Okay, so you have the 6 that you know about, and then I was going to ask you if you can name them, but you did, and then you have grandchildren now as well.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, I've got 7 grandchildren.
And your son-in-law is in Judas Priest.
Yes, Richie took the place of the blonde guy. can't remember his name.
Right.
KK Downey.
Yes. He's the new guy. Yeah.
But I mean, he's got freaking chops for days. Richie's an unbelievable player. Wow, scary, frightening.
Yeah. So. Yeah. So when I hear how many kids you have and grandchildren, then I go, no wonder George has got a solo record, because you got to work. You know what I mean, George?
Oh, yeah, I'm a working musician. I mean, I'm proud of that fact, because I was raised with the work ethic thing. Me and all my brothers and sisters, it's all about, work was love, and I'll never get away from that. So, my big thing is trying to accept the fact that I don't have to work all the time. It's okay, and you don't feel guilty about kind of just like sitting on the couch and not being quote unquote productive, which is a kind of a misnomer. I don't like that word because it has this positive connotation that I don't think it deserves. So here in the West, we're just workaholics, and that's, people pride themselves in that. And I don't think that's healthy. So,
see, I always like that about you to an extent, George, is that I know if I need to book somebody for an event, you are the guitar hero who likes to work and likes to perform. You still like to play music too. How many times I've had you come out and jam, and you say, I want to play this song, and I go, well, do you know that one, George? And you said, no, I have no idea, but just tell me what key it's in and I'll play it. It's always Ace of Spades. You say, oh, I want to play it. And I go, do you know it? And you said, no, but I could play it. And
I was never in a cover band, so I mean, unlike most people, I've always been, since the beginning, in original bands. Mm-hmm. So I always wrote the music that we played. And I mean, even when I was 15, never really had to learn songs. I mean, I've learned a few, obviously, but, just practicing and picking stuff up here and there. But I'm not like most guys that I know that are guitar players that just, they know everything. They know all the standards and the Beatles stuff and the Zeppelin stuff and the Hendrix stuff. I was never like that. So for me, it was a whole new world when I got an opportunity, for instance, when you invited me out on a number of occasions to come out to Vegas and jam with the Sin City Sinners, and who, again, know 300 songs.
Right.
And it was an opportunity for me to do something different, because I never had to do that. So for me, it was a learning experience and a new experience. It was really interesting for me because I regret not having learned a bunch of songs, other people's songs, because it, as a composer, a writer, a guitar player, whatever, it gives you insight into the way somebody else thinks when they write and when they play, and then you can maybe learn from that and adopt a little bit of that style or that insight. And I think that's really healthy and gets you out of your box sometimes. So,
I remember you telling me if I know the key, I can solo in it. I'll solo a couple of times. It'll be fine. And I remember you told me, have a rhythm guitar player on stage because people don't pay to see George Lynch play chords. And you were right.
Well, I mean, the majority of what we do is chords, unless you're Yngwie or Albert King. Mm-hmm. Albert King never played chords, and Yngwie, I don't think, plays chords. But pretty much the rest of us, we're carrying songs.
Yeah.
If we're, I care more about the song than I care about solo. I care about them both in different, those are different universes, but, and they're both important, equally important in their own way. But, to me, when I'm on stage, mostly what we're doing is conveying a song,
right,
with a singer, and that's vitally important. And I don't distinguish between rhythm and lead work. I think, all my rhythm work is intermingled with kind of solo-esque kind of stuff or other things that you can't really categorize, and vice versa, so.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and that shows in your playing, George, because you were always about songs and still are. And even this instrumental record that we're talking about, this is not you doing a typical 80s shred record. The first single is available now. It's called Death by a Thousand Licks, and you can hear that wherever music is streamed. And you can see that there is a different style. Of course, you're going to hear some of your, George, you're playing, people know it by ear, but you definitely mix it up to have different style songs on this record.
Yeah, I mean, it's it was actually, ironically, you would say that, it wasn't written to be an instrumental record. It was written a Lynch Mob record. The underlying music was. and everything except the song you just mentioned, "Death by a Thousand Licks." That was written as a sort of an afterthought when I realized I didn't have enough songs.
Mm-hmm.
I just threw something together, but everything else was I intended to have a singer sing over them, and the reason it became an instrumental is because I sent the record to 4 different singers, and none of them could come up with anything. Self-admittedly, just weren't inspired and didn't hear it, and were like, I don't know what to do with this kind of attitude. So, and at first I thought it was their fault and their problem, and then I realized, oh, the common denominator here is me and my shitty songwriting. It's not shitty songwriting, but it wasn't conducive to Lynch Mob-esque vocals and that brand. So I was ready to kind of put it to bed and just say, God, I guess I failed and didn't focus and should have had my eye on the ball, and it got away from me. And then the president of the label was talking to me about it. He said, well, what about, would you consider instrumentalizing it? And I thought, first, no way. It wasn't written to be that. Mm-hmm. And then after a while, actually I racked it up and I went and started messing with it a little bit to see what happened. Actually, it kind of started flowing. So I was like, this works. Actually, this is pretty cool.
Jimmy DeAnda, who was in the Bullet Boys, still is in the Bullet Boys. He's also in Lynch Mob at times. He plays drums on the record. And who plays bass?
I'm going to, I have to admit, I can't remember his name.
Well, it's funny you say that because I can't pronounce his name, or I would have said it. But
he's a great guy. I met him. I just met him, and it was actually somebody that one of the engineers turned me on to. Somebody he worked with, and he goes, "You got to check out this bass player." And I actually never met him. I hired him sight unseen, and he did a fantastic job. And I did actually meet with him face to face after the record was done. Yeah, I think briefly we had coffee or something for like half an hour. But
did you ever think about playing bass on a record, George?
Yeah, I have. If you play guitar, you can usually play bass. To some degree. I love to play bass. Bass is fun as hell. It's actually funner than guitar, in a way, because it's a little more percussive. And I play guitar very percussively. Because I think in terms of when I'm thinking of guitar parts in my head, I'm thinking in rhythm, in a very rhythmic sense. So I'm almost like a guitar player drummer in my head. I can't play drums or the shit, but what was the question?
Don't you? I get quite in your. I just asked you what the name of it.
Did I ever play bass? Did I ever play bass? Yeah, and bass, when you do like, Gabe Rosales stuff or Pancho Tomaselli, other guys I've played with, what's the Marco Mendoza? Guys like that, cats like that are just freaking stupid, right? And it just sounds so ass shaking and looks like so much fun. I love trying to play like that. I have a blast with it. Not the best at it, but it's very fun.
I think people would like to hear you play some bass.
You know what people wouldn't like is to hear me sing.
I heard that you're thinking about doing that, though.
Well, just to make money, because what people have done is pay me not to sing.
You think you could put the hat out and say, if you pay me on top?
I actually worked, and I never tell anybody this, I worked in a mariachi band in San Antonio down by the river walk, and I had to wear the suit and the big hat, and people would pay me not to sing.
What year is this, George?
78.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I've just gotten used to that. People pay me not to sing, not to play.
There were a lot of times in Dokken where you did not have a microphone on your side of the stage, or maybe in Lynch Mob, but I know there was times that you were not going to sing.
Yeah. I was a purist, I was a purist early on. I thought that kind of diluted my whole thing. I always wanted to concentrate on what I was doing. But now I love to sing, but I got to be careful because it's just not about me doing something that I like to do. It has to be like something that people like to hear. So that's the challenge.
Yeah. Well, these Dokken songs have big backgrounds. You're out playing with Don, doing some shows together.
I do that out of duty, but football choruses. I mean, anybody can do that. But I mean, we've even set up headset Britney Spears mics on our techs and made them sing in the choruses while they're working on stage on the side of the stage, just so there's more voices there. But I'm kidding. But that's a good idea. I should do that. But
yeah, George, come on.
yeah. No,
cheaper than tapes.
Make a quick note. Hold on.
Quick note. Now, while you make the note, I'm going to make sure that people know how to buy this record. You got to go to ratpakrecordsamerica.com. The link's going to be in the description, so you just click on it. You can pre-order the record. It's available August 20th. And George, I got to say, you've got some really cool bundles on there for fans. This record's going to be out on cassette. For $10, you can buy a cassette. You're going to have the #1 cassette in the country, George. I promise. The #1 cassette.
Yeah, I mean, that's like saying, you're going to have the #1 fucking, lobster fucking short strawberry cheesecake factory,
Don't sell yourself short, George. We're trying to sell records here. You know what I mean? But and actually the bundles are really affordable. And I'm not just saying that, they really are. There's good deals. And you've signed these things. They come with guitar picks and everything's limited. Vinyl's limited. CDs are limited. So I know we're in an age where people stream music, but this is a great way to get a collector's item. And I think George, people are looking forward to this. I think people want to hear, a full-length instrumental from you, record from you, so they can do that. The link's in the description, and I want people to do that. Now, George, I know that you're the kind of guy who will say, I got a bad connection, and you'll just cut out, and I'll never see you again. So I got to get into what, me?
I wanted to say something about the limited thing. Is anything unlimited, really? Nothing is unlimited, I don't think.
Well, you could keep printing things, but if you say you're not, then we're going to trust you on your word that there's only 200.
I mean, Motley Crue and Kiss said they weren't ever going to tour again.
That's true. Yeah. But so who knows, George? But we're trying to sell this thing. We don't want people to think that
you want to buy more of your record. No, that's it. We're done taking your money.
George,
put your money away. Put that stupid. But we hate. Yeah, it's the love of it is the root of all evil. No.
George, you might be the most honest guest I've had on. Last week, I had Stephen Pearcy from the band Rat. We are going to get into your involvement with Rat because I've kind of just learned this, and it's strange to me. But I want to go all the way back, George. Mid-'60s, you grew up in Spokane, Washington, right?
No, I was just born there. I didn't grow up there.
But you lived there until you were 10 years old or so, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of growing up.
Yeah.
Give or take. So you get a guitar at 10 years old. And you've said yourself that you don't read music. So I want to know, George, how do you learn how to play the guitar?
Well, whether you read music or not, or know theory or not, I'm pretty sure everybody that plays an instrument has some kind of proprietary personal music theory.
Mm-hmm.
So you just don't understand the universal language, but you have your own language. I mean, you have to have some kind of guidepost. You have some way of looking at the fretboard or the keyboard or imagining the intervals, which is all music is. It's just intervals of frequencies. You have to have some way of looking at to understand what you're doing. You have to look at they're just patterns, really.
But you're self-taught, right, George?
Well, no, I mean, I've had lessons, and I've learned from listening to records and watching people. I mean, just like anyone else. I mean, and I've gone to GIT and I've had tutors and I've studied and everything, but there's something about my brain that just will not. I just can't get across the barrier, the threshold of understanding with theory, and I've tried. It's not for lack of trying.
Well, you're fortunate to have the ability that you have. So, and I know that through your career, like you said, you have gone back and learned. Kids now, they can go on YouTube and someone will show them exactly how to play. And I think, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. Maybe younger kids are learning to play the guitar. But what I'm saying is, for you, George, at 10 years old, I know you were playing along to your dad's. He had a board, right?
He had an old GE console stereo, the kind of 60s kind of thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was my learning machine, really, because I was just playing along to vinyl, and I would just go in deep, and and I plugged into the tape input, I believe, on the reel-to-reel machine that was built into it, and that somehow amplified the guitar and if I cranked it, it would distort. So I actually got distortion before they had fuzz tones and things like that. So it made it sound cool. And I had and actually I had a 1960 Les Paul Special that I bought for $80 that also came with a Fender Tremolux amplifier from some widow that was my dad matched me dollar for dollar with my lawn mowing money that I made that summer. And he found the ad in a paper and said, "Oh, there's this woman that's got this." She wanted $100, and my dad talked her down to $80 for a 1960 Les Paul.
You don't still have that one, do you?
No, it was stolen from me, and it was one of the micro tragedies of my life when that occurred, because I was absolutely poor. I mean, I don't even want to tell you my living circumstances, but it was whatever. I was living out of a motel in Linwood, California, which isn't the greatest place in the world to live. I mean, it's, it was rough, and which is why my guitar got stolen, because somebody broke into my place and stole it.
This is like mid-70s, George?
This would be early 70s.
Okay, early, yeah.
And I had a couple of terrible jobs. I had a bicycle and I had the guitar, and that's all I owned. And I actually lived with a prostitute, which I didn't have anything to do with, but we lived in this one-room by-the-week hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And I rode my bicycle to the Mediterranean chuck wagon, where I was a dishwasher. And then I had a couple other crappy jobs. Like on the weekend, I had a job filling catering trucks. I was the ice boy. So I had a shovel, an ice shovel, and a whatever wheelbarrow. And I would go to the ice house and get all the ice, and then I would load up all the catering trucks with ice. And this was just like a midnight to 7 a.m. job, and I got paid $10 a night or something. It was just yeah. I'll tell you what, I have a 9th grade education. I would have probably, I don't know where I would have landed, but I was really stuck, and if it wasn't for guitar miraculously pulling me out of that, I have no idea where I would have went. But
it's amazing that it worked out so well for you. So George, let's talk about the Boys with the Z.
Yeah.
Around 1976, you start playing in this band, the Boys, and at the time, I believe, managed by Kim Fowley. Is that right?
Well, prior to that, I had my first band, which was, it's not my first band. My first band that actually did gigs and stuff. We were called Tungus Grump.
Oh, how could I forget that? Yeah.
Yeah, that's the biggie right there. That needs to go on the T-shirt. So then after that, it was the Boys, and Boys were more pro, and that was Mick Brown.
Right.
And we had good singers, and we had a variety of singers. And there's a lot of great stories there, but if you want to get into it, I can get into it. But unbelievable memories, and I don't know if I'd ever want to go through it again, but we went through it. Definitely went through it.
Well, this is around the time you're probably playing the Starwood, places like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so
everything there was, it was a great club scene, and we played the Ice House and the Smokestack, and the Starwood, and places out in the Valley, and the Troubadour, and the Whiskey, and a ton of other places. A lot of Battle of the Bands were happening back then. That was pretty cool, pretty competitive. And it was Van Halen, there was Quiet Riot, there was Stormer, there was A La Carte, who were great. There was Eulogy, who now that guitar player has been playing with Paul McCartney for I don't know how many decades. Just great scene back then, and all the bands were different. There wasn't any bands that were similar to the other bands. They were all unique.
And some of you, yourself included, go on to have really legendary careers. Of course, there's a lot of guys who never made it, but of some of the big ones, you're talking about Quiet Riot, which has Randy Rhoads at the time, and of course Van Halen, which were playing more cover songs. Like you said, it's different than what you were doing. Van Halen was almost a cover band before they were Van Halen. You saw them.
Yeah, Mammoth.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just insane. Probably the greatest rock bands in history, and to have witnessed that was devastatingly inspiring. It was just unbelievable how powerful they were. And
there these
was very inspired by Eddie. Eddie's probably one of my biggest inspirations. You know, I mean, Hendrix, Beck, and Eddie were probably the big three.
There's all these, rumors that Eddie borrowed things from you. I've heard you say no. Yeah, but
I don't think so.
but I'm sure everybody saw each other and went, "Holy shit!"
I mean, Randy was he liked what I did, and he would tell me that, and he'd bring his mom out to see me play, and he goes, "I like this guy better than Eddie." I don't believe that, because Randy did that with that live Ozzy record. He did that guitar solo. He's basically just playing Eruption, and put it on a record. That's pretty ballsy. I'm like, wow, that's not very original, but as wonderful as he was, and he was a sweet guy, and he was very talented and very deep player. But yeah, no, but he seemed to acknowledge my playing, and which is why I got his job. I remember the time, we were both up for Ozzy, and I got the call, and it was like, well, we got some good news and bad news. The bad news is you didn't get Ozzy, Randy did, but the good news is you got the consolation prizes. You got his teaching gig at his mom's music school, Musonia, for $10 an hour or $5.
Yeah, that's your first experience with Ozzy and Randy, and we'll get on to the rest of it in a minute. But it is incredible, George. Eddie Van Halen and Randy Rhoads are no longer with us. It's got to be strange for you to look back and realize that you're kind of the last of those guys.
Yeah, I mean, there's Jakey and Warren, and there's other guys that maybe they're not as well known, but we knew of them, and they were great.
No, absolutely. And Jake and Warren, though, came a little later than you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a little bit. I think of us as kind of the same group, the SoCal guys from the 80s.
Well, listen, George, I think so, too. I've been trying to say for ages, you guys need to do a tour of the three of you. You, Jake.
What you would call it? The Reluctant Astronaut Tour, because these guys, we can't get them to budge. I've already.
What is funny about you saying that, George, is so sometimes people think that you're a character, and you're a bit of a character. George, I think you're the most normal of the three.
Yeah, there we go. That's. We were having that discussion during that photo shoot, and I was like, guys, if we don't do that, I mean, this is kind of a no-brainer, but whatever you want to do, and they're like, yeah, but
it would be huge. I mean, and I think this is something that fans would love to see.
Well,
Stephen Pearcy.
Jakey did, and I were talking about it seriously at one point, but then when I tried to get Warren involved, and he just said, "No, this is too much. I didn't sign up for this. This is crazy," and he got out. And okay, well, can't make people do stuff they don't want to do. So
Stephen Pearcy would not tell me the last time he spoke to Warren Demartini. It's a big secret. But when is the last time you spoke to him?
Not too long ago, actually. Yeah, he called me like a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, you're in touch with all these guys still. Mm-hmm. And so, who knows? Maybe one day we can figure that out. But that's what we're hoping. So did Gene Simmons want to manage the boys?
No, never got to that. He was giving us, he came out to see us a couple of times, but then that all came to a dead stop when they came out to see us, and we played with Van Halen at the Starwood. And
there's a story, George. Maybe it's true, maybe it's just folklore, that he came out, Van Halen went on first, and after Van Halen, he left. Not true?
No, we came out before Van Halen. And he even said in his book that we sucked, which I don't think we sucked. It wasn't our best show, but I mean, we knew we were, I mean, listen, we didn't have David Lee Roth, and I wasn't Eddie. We were good, but, we weren't that. So we didn't have those songs. We didn't have Eddie. We didn't have David. And, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I did get something out of it. Gene Simmons renamed me, which I guess he's really good at coming up with people's new names.
Mm-hmm. I've seen him do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm John Lynx, which is actually really great, because it's still kind of like George Lynch, same first kind of sounding letters, but John Jon Lynx Lynx.
He thought you should change it.
Yeah, he came up with names for everybody.
I saw him tell Kip Winger that there's no way a rock star could have the name Kip. It sounds like the Mickey Mouse Club, and that he has to get rid of it. Yeah.
Yeah, how'd that work out? Well, I mean, I don't know if I believe that about Kip, but I mean, then you got Winger, which is pretty cool. Winger is kind of winging it,
Yeah.
wings. I mean, Lynch is cool, but George isn't. So Lynch George dilutes the coolness of Lynch. I think if it was
George, I think
sure.
I think by now you've made it work for you.
George is never cool. There's no way that you can make George cool.
Well, Jorge is what we have on your screen, so maybe that's never too late. Never too late to rebrand.
When I go to Starbucks and they ask me my name, I say Spartacus, just to hear him call it out when my coffee's ready, and see the look on people's faces. They go, "Where's Spartacus?"
Is that true, George?
It is absolutely true.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't do it every time.
No, listen, they'll get used to it if you do it every time.
Right. I got to keep changing it up.
George, so things aren't working out with the boys, and you and Mick decide to go on to Exciter with an X, right? 1977.
Same band, new singer.
Okay, new singer. So let's talk a little bit about Exciter, and let's look at pictures.
Huge Judas Priest fans.
Look at that sexy guy right there, George.
I made those cabinets and those outfits myself.
Wow.
And the guitar.
Do you have that guitar?
No. But I made everything in that picture except me and the stage.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool.
Let's see what else we got, George. I like to see your style over the years.
Look at that. That's the first tiger. It's called the Booger.
Yeah, now that you still have.
No, I don't have it.
Really?
No, I went to the Hard Rock.
Okay. Well, at least it's being.
But that's the first tiger. That's before the yellow Bengal tiger. We built that one, which wasn't as good as and that's the one that Sharon Osbourne hated, and probably why I didn't get in the band, because she goes, she'd come to rehearsal. She goes, "Why does your guitar look like a booger?"
That's the guitar. Well, we're going to get to that, George. Tell me about that V first. Do you have that?
That I have no recollection of. I'm sorry. Probably Charvel.
Okay, that might have been just for the picture type thing. All right, George. Hold on.
Kaja Gugu, by the way.
Say it again?
That was pre-Kaja Gugu.
Oh, no. Listen, Kaja Gugu stole it from you, George. It's Lamal or whatever his name is. And here's the last one. What about this guitar? Do you have this one?
No, but I'm making 2 of those exact replicas.
That's cool, because there's a lot of video of you playing this guitar back then.
Yeah.
So, well, cool. And yes, and for people who don't know, you make guitars.
Yep, Mr. Scary Guitars.
Which we'll talk about a little bit. I'm going to start rushing, George, because I just got the feeling you're going to blow the dinner bell at any time, and that's it. You got to go. So,
well, my wife opens that door, it's all over.
Yeah, that's usually how these interviews end. Okay, George. So, Exciter, you're playing the song "Paris Is Burning," which later ends up on the Dokken album, "Breaking the Chains." So, was that was your song first?
Yeah, as well as quite a few. Well, some others. Night Rider. There's a few things on that first and second record that were derived from Exciter stuff. Yeah.
So okay, and so people can hear that on those records, and then I think Don did change maybe some of the melodies and things to get to.
Yeah, he made it his own.
Right. Okay. So you mentioned in 1979, Randy Rhoads left Quiet Riot to join Ozzy. You then took his job teaching guitars at his mother's school. Now, you're in Dokken at this point. Breaking the Chains record, it came out in Europe in 1981. Juan Crucier from Rat and his brother also play on it in different places. Peter from Accept. Tell me what happened.
No, Juan didn't play on the record, and neither did his brother. It was me, Mick, Don, and Peter Baltz.
So no Juan at all, even on the 1983 American version? See, now, Juan will say that he's on there a little bit. His brother was on the demos, but he wanted to say...
His brother, before we were ever involved, me and Mick were ever involved, there was a very short period where it went from Airborne, which was Don's bands before Dokken, and then he called it Dokken for a second, and then Mick and I joined forces with him and that was the Dokken that we know. And we got Juan to go to Europe with us, but Juan didn't end up playing on the record. And we had Peter Baltz, because we were in Germany, so we had Peter Baltz come over and lay down the bass, which he was fucking awesome. And yeah. And,
see, now we're dispelling rumors.
Yeah, we did shows with Juan.
Right.
But I don't think he ever recorded anything with us. I mean,
all right. He says he did, but listen, who am I to?
We did record, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not 100% sure if he was the bass player on this, but there was a guy named Udo Lindenberg that hired me in Germany while we were in Germany. We were there for quite a while, some many, many months. And we didn't have any money, and I didn't know how to get home. And this guy, Udo Lindenberg, is a famous German artist, but he's just like famous in Germany only, and he sings in Deutsch, and but he's like Elvis in Germany. He's probably got like 40 albums, and you can fill soccer stadiums. I've heard of him, right? And he's like, this guy wants you to like play on his record. I'm like, whatever. He paid me like $1,000 or something, And we were there for a couple of days in Hamburg in this fucking great old school studio, that was huge and had all analog. Of course, everything was analog back then. But and they go, just set up and just write my album. So I wrote a bunch of songs. I forget, it was maybe 5 songs or something. Me and Mick, and I think it was Juan. Maybe it was a different bass player at that point. At one point,
I read about this, but I was wondering, George, are those songs anywhere we can find?
Yeah, it's on an album. I have it. Somebody sent it to me. The artist is Udo Lindenberg, and it's called Die Krupp or something like that. D-I-E or D-E-I Krupp. And the cover is hot pink with Udo dressed up in a caveman outfit with a club, standing there posing.
Naturally.
And it sounds like Breaking the Chains-ish, kind of, yeah.
Well, listen, George, when we get done, I'm going to go listen to this. I got to see if this was, what I've been missing all these years.
Yeah, it's not going to, you're going to get it. And you're going to go, okay, it's kind of interesting, but it's not going to change your life.
Right. Well, listen, I prefer to be more optimistic, George. Now, sadly,
curiosity more than anything else.
I got you. Yeah. Well, and some people are completists. They're Lynch completists. They need to have everything. So
I think I don't have. Yeah.
Sadly, George, March 1982, Randy Rhoads passes away in the now infamous plane crash. It had to be hard on you. You knew him. I think it was hard on everyone who was in the music scene.
Well, it was, but I didn't know him. Like, we weren't like friends. We were, I'd say, more acquaintances than anything. And of course, we traveled in the same circles, played shows together, would hang out. I've told people this numerous times, but there was something that I showed him that he insisted I show him numerous times, and he would take that and use it, recorded it on some of the Ozzy records. I can't remember which song it was, Flying High, I think, or something. But it wasn't like we had each other's phone numbers and we were hanging out or anything.
Right.
So yeah, it was tragic and sad.
Yeah, obviously it's still sad, but you weren't.
It wasn't like when Eddie passed, because then now we were compatriots, and then all of a sudden, we'd gone through all these decades, and so even though I didn't have his star magnitude of stardom or anything, or recognition or money or anything like that, we still ran in kind of the parallel circles, and we're kind of in the, when they look at the dustbin of history or this, the time capsule, our names would possibly be sort of, in that same basket. So we shared similar experiences and motivations and things like that. And then when he went, man, he was just such a huge influence on all of us. Every guitar player I talked to, nobody escaped the influence of Eddie. So that was hard. That was harder than just about anybody else, we lost so many. We're just watching, musical icons melt away before our eyes. It's just insane. And just, wow, when you think about it, because like in 100 years, nobody that's alive right now is going to be alive. It's
right.
Like, all this is going to be gone. All these musical giants. Oh,
we're fortunate that yourself included, that you guys made such a great body of work that will live, and hopefully new generations will. I think people will discover Van Halen forever. I think that every child who wants to play music will hear about Van Halen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to experience that, just the sheer joy and wonder of playing an instrument well and being able to express yourself with it, and people identify with that, because we're all creative people. We're all creative animals. I mean, I think what our job is just to express what other people have limited ability to express. That's all. I mean, we're all want to say the same thing.
Yeah, and we find different ways to do it.
And if you do it in a unique way, then you get recognized, I guess.
Yeah, no, I get it, George. So March 82, we say that Randy passes away. The Ozzy camp, they want to get right back out and continue. By April, they already have Bernie Torme playing guitar in the band, and he's not going to work out. They've got Brad Gillis out already on shows where Ozzy's history of guitar players is insane. I've interviewed a million people who have been hired or fired, or Robert Sarzo was in that mix as well. He thought he had the gig when Bernie gets it. And so it seems like sometimes Ozzy likes one person, Sharon likes another person, and multiple people think they have the gig. You know where I'm going. So, but Brad Gillis comes in, and Brad Gillis, a lot of people think that the Speak of the Devil record, live record, is really great. A lot of people thought that Brad played really well. But he also was not working out, and they were going to put out the debut album of Night Ranger. He's deciding to go with that, and he probably made a good choice. He's still in Night Ranger. And they bring you out, George. Who calls you, and how does this happen?
Dana Strum was really the interface, the intermediary. He was like the jobber, I guess you would say. He was out there. He was Ozzy's point guy, from what I could tell. Bringing people in.
George, I always wondered, and maybe why did Dana never play bass with Ozzy? He's always in the mix, but he never played.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. Ozzy and Sharon were very conscious of not just your playing, but I think more of your image.
Right.
So I know in my case that had something to do with the fact that I didn't work out, because at that point in my life, I wasn't really making much of any money playing guitar, so I still had a job. I drove a truck. I was a teamster. I drove a liquor truck, and I loved my job, because it was probably the best job I ever had up to that point. And I had 2 kids, and I had to provide. So I ended up cutting my hair to keep my job, and then I got the Ozzy call. And I showed up with short hair, and that really bothered them.
They had you tour, though. You didn't play. You stayed off to the side of the stage.
No, I didn't tour. I did travel with them, and they wanted me to kind of, Brad to mentor me or kind of watch what was going on, and then I would go up for sound checks, and I'd plug into Brad's rig, and I'd play along, and then we'd go into rehearsals in London and Dallas, and back here in LA at SR. So I was involved, but no, I didn't step on stage in front of an audience.
But you went overseas, right, George?
Yeah, I went to England, Scotland, Ireland.
Were they paying you?
Never paid me a nickel, and I got to say, out of principle, that was very strange, because they didn't seem interested in what was going to happen to me afterwards or anything about me. It was just what served them. And I get that. You
had to put your job on hold, though, too, to do this.
Yeah, I mean, I had 2 kids. I didn't really have any money. I mean, I had a beat-up Pinto station wagon and a shitty apartment in Anaheim, and I was just trying to stay above water, and I had to quit my job. I lost my job, and when we got the word, actually, Ozzy came up to me and says, and didn't quite understand what he said, because it's hard to understand what he's saying, but he was mumbling something, and sort of just me and him in the back room, and he goes, we're not going to need you. I'm paraphrasing, and we can just let you go, and that was it. It wasn't any like.
So George, is the story not true that he fired you in front of Jake?
I don't know if Jake was in the room. I don't think so.
Jake tells a story Well, before Jake gets involved, you called Mark Kendall from Great White. He was in Dante Fox, and you said they need a bass player because Rudy Sarzo was going back to Quiet Riot, and they got Don Costa. You recommended him for them.
Right. Well, no, I was playing with Don Costa, and for some reason, I don't remember why, but I recommended Don Costa, and he got the gig. He had the cheese great. He looked great. He kind of was shirt off, and he's like an animal, fucking caveman guy. And he had the cheese grater on the back of his bass, and would scrape his knuckles on it, and would bleed everywhere. And Ozzy loved that. So I didn't have any of that. You know, I was just a guitar player. I wasn't like, I didn't have a great look, I guess, or whatever. And Jakey showed up that night that I got fired with like full leather, you know, like a Michael Jackson fucking leather jumpsuit with fucking hair down to his ass. And, you know,
that's the first time you'd ever met him.
I don't know.
You didn't know Jake?
Probably not. I don't remember. Probably not.
I mean, I know now you guys know each other well, obviously. But so the story is that Jake walks into the room and, you know, it's very awkward that he's basically getting your job. And one of the legends is that that Ozzy fires you just in front of Jake. Like, well, we're hiring. We don't need you anymore, which is a bummer all around. If it's,
I mean, it was pretty devastating, and it was done very cold. And that was the thing. It was a month out of my life. And I would have think anybody in that position would have at least said, hey, are you going to be okay? Do you need a little something just to get you bridge you over to your whatever, you know, get you back on your life, you know, or nothing. It was not even a fucking nickel. It was just insane. I was just like, so we got evicted from our apartment, so I couldn't find a job, you know, like the next day. And we were behind on bills when I was doing this whole audition thing and tramping around the world with these guys and, you know, wasting everybody's time, I guess. And then I came back with nothing, and we lost our apartment. We got evicted.
man.
And we had to move in with her folks into their garage. You know, it was just rough, and it took me another year to get out of that mess. And
George, I always wondered, did you ever see Ozzy? I don't think Dokken played with Ozzy or anything like that.
I saw Ozzy with Brad Gillis before that all happened.
No, I mean, did you ever see him again after that incident?
Oh yeah. Yeah, not personally. No, I've seen him play in concert, but
right. You haven't had a conversation with Ozzy. I mean, George, at the end of the day, as your success happens, records start going platinum. You get nominated for a Grammy.
I should start an Ozzy Osbourne survivors, you know, like group that we meet, you know, like AA meeting or something. You know, we tell our stories. And,
Don Costa will be there.
There'll be like 30 people there, you know.
Don Costa got his nose broken by an Ozzy headbutt when he got fired. So, you know, do you know that one?
No.
That story comes from Jakey Lee. I'll paraphrase it real fast. They said that Don Costa used to get in front of Ozzy on the stage, and Sharon told him, you got to stay in the back when Ozzy's up front. And he told somebody on the crew, I just do it when they're not looking. Ozzy found out. Ozzy has him come in the back of the bus. Ozzy headbutts him and breaks his nose. He's bleeding. Jake is on the bus. Jake asks him, you know, what happened? He runs off the bus, and Ozzy says, he tried to kiss me. At least that's what I'm going to say. I don't know why Don Costa didn't just beat Ozzy up, but at this point, he thinks he still has his gig. They tell him to come to the US Festival that he's going to play. And poor Don Costa, Ozzy pays this is Jake's story, pays $5,000 for his nose to be fixed, plastic surgery. He shows up at the US Festival. He brings his family. And when he gets there, he sees Bob Daisley. Jakey Lee goes up to Bob Daisley and goes, what are you doing here? And he says, well, I'm playing bass tonight. And they then told Don Costa at the gig, you're fired.
It seemed very vengeful.
It's ridiculous.
I'm wondering, you know, I wasn't around him long enough or got inside of him enough to know how much of that was Ozzy or was that Sharon? I don't know.
I feel like a lot of this is Sharon because I've heard a lot of musicians say they bonded with Ozzy, but Sharon would then make an ultimate say.
Yeah, I pretty much feel the same way. I think that's what was going on. And she had some things to say about me, and you know, why you play that ugly green guitar that looks like a booger? Why'd you cut your hair? Why this? Why does it sound like that? Why does it sound like that? It's supposed to sound like that? Yeah, I think it sounds pretty good. Really?
It's ridiculous that she's a media darling now. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm. Yeah, Spinal Tap.
okay, so I want to get, and I know we're running out of time, George. At least I'm saying that because I have a feeling you're going to go. I got to go. But the odd connections with Rat now, George. You after this, Warren leaves Rat, and he's playing with Dokken. True?
Yes.
Okay. You then get the gig in Rat.
Yeah.
Is it the lineup of Rat that we know minus Warren?
Yeah.
Do
Yeah,
you
but we
play?
were. It was funny. We were rehearsing at Priscilla's place in Burbank, and they were across. We were across the hall from each other. We practiced right next to each other. We'd always just hang out. So we're almost like, just like almost the same band.
It's like
So
a
yeah,
sitcom.
eventually at one point, Warren and I looked at each other and we go, "Why don't we just go back to our respective bands? I mean, wouldn't that make more sense?" And that's what we did. So it didn't last long.
Did you play live shows with Rat?
No, neither one of us did.
Okay, so there's no Dokken shows. He rehearsed and you rehearsed.
Yeah.
And so maybe a few months?
I can't remember. It wasn't that long.
This is sort of, though, history in the Dokken and Rat worlds that there's a famous story that they were going to trade baseball players. I think they were going to trade Ted Williams for Joe DiMaggio or something, but it never happened. But, I mean, the world would have been different if you would have been in Rat and Warren would have been in Dokken.
Butterfly effect.
Now, a few years ago, Warren, they had some issues with Rat. I know they approached you to play. You turned it down, right?
No.
Tell me what happened.
No, we were talking about it, but they wanted a hired gun guy that was working for a not great salary, and I'm like, I'm not that guy. I've never been a hired gun guy, So I mean, you want me? I'll be part of the band, and I will write songs, and I will be an integral part of one of the big cogs in the wheel, But if you want a hired gun, I'm sure you can get somebody to do that. But that's not me, and that's where it fell apart. And the guy they got is unbelievable. I mean, I've played gigs with this guy. He's fucking amazing. He's great.
Yeah. But as I've been talking to Steven, and I went on the road with those guys, I did some work with them. But talking to Steven, that lineup is pretty much done. He says I think there was some Steven had cancer that he was keeping quiet. He had liver cancer. Mm-hmm. And he was having his knees worked on. So he wasn't really involved in the business. And I'll tell you, between us and the millions of viewers watching, they had this idea that who needs Warren Demartini? We got this young kid, but the audience wanted Warren. Warren was really the sound of Rat. And I think only you or maybe Jake could have at least kept the audience's interest. You know what I mean? And of course, it would be different.
Yeah, it would have worked, I think. Outside the personalities and the politics of being in that band, because they're probably worse than Dokken at
I think so.
Having issues. So that's something I probably wouldn't have enjoyed and wanted to get involved in. But if it was a clean situation where we didn't have a bunch of drama, I mean, musically, I think I'm very confident I would have been a good fit.
I think so too.
We have somewhat similar styles, obviously, and kind of come from the same place. I get what he's doing. We go for kind of the same tone and stuff. So I think it would have worked in a way. It would have been a little different, but it would have been a decent fit, I think. And I think about any of these kind of legacy bands like Whitesnake. There was some talk there too of something happening. Judas Priest, and all along the year,
Mm-hmm.
in past years, I've had little, incidents of opportunities or discussions of being in other bands. But what I never got was the why these guys would want to go with like a newer cat, that you're a shredder and all this, and you can do all that and play, over the top and play, 19 fingers and billions of notes. But if you're a classic legacy blues-based hard rock band with giant songs, I mean, that's what you want. You want that guy, And I know whether it's me or somebody else, but I don't understand why these older cats always go for the young guys. You know, like it's just very disingenuous to me. It's like Ozzy, you know, or Ronnie James Dio and hiring, you know, like an 18-year-old guitar player and he's like 70. You know, I mean, that doesn't make any sense, dude. Get guys your age that come from the same place. And that's what people want to hear too. I want to hear like Deep Purple. I don't want to hear some shred guy in Deep Purple. I want to hear Blackmore. You know, and I want to hear those songs and I want to hear that.
Yeah, I think that sometimes these guys do it as a money decision. With Rat, that could have been the answer. Well, we could pay this guy.
Well, yeah, I mean, not to get involved with that, but I'm saying
I get it.
But yeah, sure, of course. I mean, you know, I mean, that's the thing. You get, you know, if you're Bon Jovi, I'm speculating here. I know nothing about Bon Jovi's business, but I'm sure Richie Sambora was getting a giant percentage as a founding member versus whoever they could hire.
3 more guys they could put in, you know, for fraction.
Yeah, but I mean, paying $10K a week, but that's nothing compared to what a founding member is getting off a band that's making those kind of guarantees. That's not.
Yeah, you answered my next question, George, because I really did wonder over the years. I bet you bands would lose a guitar player and go, let's go to Lynch, because you are, I said it, you're the guitar hero who is sort of ready to work if it's the right situation.
I don't really, I would never do a band like that where I'm paid as a hired gun.
Right.
I just wouldn't do it. I just, out of principle, I've just never done it. I'm not good at it either, you know? I mean, like I said, I've always written my own songs. I've never been in a cover band. I couldn't like join whatever band and probably do that as well as anybody, you know, as somebody else could. So,
yeah, you have your own legacy.
Yeah, it's just the way I've kind of, by whatever reason, I've just kind of built myself this way, and it's who I am at this point. I'm not going to change. You know,
and you're not living in a weekly with a prostitute anymore. You don't have to take every gig.
You know, I mean, the wife
the night is young.
6 of one, half dozen the other. This
George,
recorded, right?
No, of course not. George, I want to make sure you're on the road right now, which, you know, is fly dates nowadays. Most people don't constantly go out. And you are doing a lot of shows as a 3-piece, and you're going on the same bill as Dokken. Is it strange to you that there's a band called Dokken that is just on Dokken?
Well, what's really strange is, as you said, when we do these shows, meaning my band, George Lynch's Electric Freedom, which is a power trio, by the way, yes, is opening up for Dokken, which is playing my songs, little songs I, you know, wrote most of the music for. I mean, they open up with Without Warning, which is my instrumental intro to Tooth and Nail, and then, you know, everything else. And it just kind of a very disembodied, surreal feeling. It was yeah, it is. It takes a little bit of a toll. Yeah, I got to kind of take it with a huge grain of salt.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's big that you do it, and I think the fans really enjoy it. And this may be the last chance that they get to see it.
You know, right. I mean, I was really hoping it was a bridge to, you know, doing a new record with the real band, you know, the old band, and with Jeff and Don and myself, and tour, and, you know, while we're still all around and still
that's what Jeff said.
But yeah, I just don't really think it's going to happen, quite honestly. It doesn't look like it. You know, when people they start saying, well, I hear language like, oh, maybe in 2023. I'm like, 2023, I'll be fishing.
And I don't know, and, you know, I'm saying this, not you, but I don't know if Don's going to be singing hard rock songs at that point. I think it's already taking its toll.
It would be enjoyable at that point. I'm kind of, you know, it's now or never kind of thing. And I've been saying that for years, and now it's gotten to the point where I think we've passed the event horizon. By that time, I'll have my little, you know, blues rock, whatever band I'm in, you know, I'll be called the Rockin' Chairs or something, you know, just playing little bars in New Mexico and being happy doing that.
Well, fans can go to your website, though, George, and they can learn about the shows. And because this is probably as close as it's going to get to see you with Don. Jeff's going to be with Foreigner. I mean, this is probably it. I want to mention how great those End Machine records are. I originally was going to have you on to promote the second one. Both those records are great. Robert Mason is singing, you know, and it's no disrespect to Don, but I don't think that'd be the style he sings in right now. Robert's got a big rock voice. He's great at what he does. And you guys, you know, it's tough that right now it's so, you know, music is not as it's easy to get, but yet people aren't looking for new music. Those End Machine records are great.
Thank you. Yeah, I got a ton of different projects. I just keep doing it because I can. So, if you don't like that, well, pick another one of my projects. You'll eventually like something.
Well, one day you're making a record with Michael Sweet from Stryper. The next day you're making a record with Angela Moore from Fishbone.
That is, oh my God. Angela's my hero.
I saw it.
The world's greatest living frontman.
He is cool. I saw it here in Vegas, and someone said to me, I heard George Lynch was playing. Where is he? And I said, well, that's him right there. How could you don't know George? You were in a baseball cap.
The 50-year-old guy with a leather skirt on.
Yes, you did have a leather skirt on. But I think they were waiting for Mr. Scary, and
no, you don't get that.
No, but that's what's great, George. You give people what they want. If they want to see you play rock, if they want, you have got it covered, George. You're the kind of guy I think who will play, for the rest of your life. Like you said, maybe you'll be in a little blues bar, but I think you play because you like it. It's obviously not because you're getting rich from every project you do. Well,
I mean, there's different reasons. I mean, I have multiple reasons for playing. I mean, it is my occupation, my vocation, and everybody needs to make money, and I try to maximize that and do okay, in which feel very fortunate to be able to raise a large family and provide and making music, which I think is a task in and of itself to be able to do that over that long a period. But I'm very proud of that and feel very fortunate that I've had the opportunity to do that. And then there's the whole creative side, which is a whole other thing, which is kind of mysterious and beautiful, and of course is why we do it. Because I never thought when I started playing guitar, or even when I was in my teens or even my early 20s, that this was anything that I'd ever make money at. I mean, that thought never even entered my mind. It was just something that I did.
Yeah, it was a job. You're very humble about what you've done in your career, and I think that you're for fans and things, you're very approachable, and that's to a lot of people that's a big thrill, because you really have left a big mark, George, and so I think people are fortunate that we still get to see you out there. Now, I know that we're retiring the name Lynch Mob. For obvious reasons. I know you said for years that you knew that it was not really a great name to have anymore, but it was, you made these hit records with it. When I saw the headline, George is looking for new names, I wanted to have you on and then suggest, you're already smirking, suggest all kinds of politically incorrect, racially insensitive names that you could replace it with. Like, how about, the Klansmen, or how about, skinheads, or, things like that.
That was the running joke with all of it, right? Along those same lines. We go, we got rid of Lynch Mob, but our new name is, Gay Black Nazi Bikers for Christ.
Right. Yeah. So I wasn't
something way worse, which I won't repeat. But yeah, exactly.
Yes, I thought that too. But I thought, who knows how it's going to go. George, I'm really happy that you joined me. I got to tell you, I was a little nervous. I'm more nervous when I talk to people that I know, because I'm worried if they're going to, other people will get the same enjoyment that I get from speaking to you. But I think you told a lot of great stories, and I think you cleared up a lot of history that I don't think everyone knows. And, your fans, George, are getting younger and younger. That's the crazy thing. These people come into the shows and bring in their kids, and they're discovering you. I see these kids at these rock camps and things, learning how to play, and they're learning, Mr. Scary. And so, again, it's quite the legacy.
I didn't even scratch the surface with the stories, but yeah, I mean, we'll have to hit that next time. But we were kind of moving pretty quick there. But
George, I was worried,
and I appreciate it, Jason. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, George, I was worried that at any second you were going to say, "I've had enough of this," and I didn't know that you were going to be up for some fun stories. But before you go, we got to mention, George, we got to pay some bills. Rat Pak Records America.com. The link is in the description. You can pre-order now. It comes out August 20th. It's called Seamless, all instrumental album from George Lynch. I should point out one of the things about pre-ordering these bundles. Yeah, you can get cassettes, and there's autographs, and there's picks, and there's CDs and vinyl. But there's also 3 bonus tracks that I believe are only on the physical copies. So it's worth it to get one just for that. And
you want to get those, because I was actually listening to it the other day, because I had to listen to it to sort of jog my memory when I was doing these interviews, when they were asking me questions about the songs. And I had sort of forgotten, what songs were what. And so I was listening to it. And the bonus tracks are something I actually called up the label guy and said, "Hey, are these on the record?" because they're called bonus tracks. I mean, where are these just coming out in Japan or Europe or something? He goes, no, just on the physical CD. So I go, I was glad, because I was like, no, I mean, you want to hear it. Those are good. I mean, they're not throwaway songs. They're important songs, especially guitar wise. Some of them I like some of the best songs actually. So I was like, damn, it kind of had me worried there for a second, but yeah. So get the CD.
Yeah, get the CD or vinyl. I mean, it's really reasonably priced, George. Whoever's running your business there did a really good deal, because this is
music. Crazy. He's crazy. He's insane. Like that guy that sells sofas in New York City. I mean, he's out of his mind. He's just giving shit away.
We're like Crazy Eddie from New York. Yeah. These prices are insane. George, I now that you came on and we had a good time, I hope that on the next project you'll come back and we'll do it again. We'll pick a day. I know you're getting ready to go out on the road.
It's like 6 projects. There was a whole bunch of other projects. There's a whole bunch of other stories. I didn't even tell any stories, actually, I don't think. So, yeah, there's all that. So we'll do that next time, Jason. I love talking to you, even in real life. Yeah,
I appreciate it. Well, real life with an audience is good too, George. We're exhibitionists.
Right.
Thank you, George.
But you're very entertaining. And next time, maybe we can do an interview that's not so focused. I guess that's really the definition of an interview, but I'd rather not talk about me so much. Maybe we could talk about how you feel about me.
Well, I think I told you a lot about how I feel about you.
Yeah, you did.
George, I'm going to
talk about how you feel about my record.
George, I'm going to tell a story about you real quick, because you didn't get to tell any. I'm going to tell one real quick, and your wife hasn't banged on the door yet. George, you're here in Las Vegas playing with us at a place called Green Valley Ranch. The theater was called Ovation. They've knocked it down. You were having a problem with your back, and it was really hard for you to really bend down, but you came to play. And so you told me, I got to make sure I can hear the drums in the monitor. It was just me and you on the stage. No one else is around. So I go, well, I don't know how to play the drums, George, but I'll go back there and I'll hit I'll step on the kick and I'll hit the snare and we'll be fine. And so over and over you would say, oh, that's good, but now let's do a song. And then you would start playing a song. And it took me a few times to realize that you were screwing with me. And I'm like, but George, I don't know how to play the drums. And you're like, no, you'll be fine. And then we would go through this a third or fourth time. That same night, you introduced the new George Lynch guitar chord. But every time you would take a solo, the George Lynch chord, I swear this is true, would pop out of the amp. And you played so loud that we would turn your amps to the wall, the speaker to the wall. Yeah. And I would sit there and watch it. You would go to play one of your iconic solos. People are on the edge of their seat. And this chord with all these skulls and skeletons would then fall out of the amplifier. Yeah. And I asked you, what do we do, George? And your answer was, hold it. and
yeah.
For the duration of, and that night you played like 3 solos per song because you wanted to give the people what they want. And I held it, and then we tried to get some tape. And I guess I'm not doing a very good job of selling the George Lynch chord.
Right. Really bad design. What had happened was we designed this incredible plug right on the end of the cable that was this sculpted with skulls and heavy pewter, this whole thing. The problem was it wasn't functional because, as you said, it was so heavy, it would just drop out of the guitar. It was also, for some reason, I think it had some pin in it or something that caused it to eject from the input jack of the amp. It's like was an anti-musical guitar chord. It would just wait till you got to this crescendo moment and the most emotional part of your guitar solo, and then knew when to pull out.
For lack of a better description.
Right.
But it did seem like
the rhythm method, I think, right?
That would be the rhythm method for sure. Yeah. But yeah, right before.
Horrible idea. Yeah, $129 for a guitar chord that self withdraws, at the moment of impact or whatever. It's just...
Can we still get those at georgelynch.com?
No, you can't get them.
You should have a clearance sale.
I do have a story about how I named my website. I went to this. It's a naming service in Hollywood, and they name rock bands. They'll name your songs. They'll name your business or whatever. Rock-oriented business is your website, and I paid $500 for them to come up with the name of my website.
And it was georgelynch.com?
georgelynch.com. Brilliant. I mean, it was worth every penny.
What were you expecting?
Xenon, the Galactic Space Warrior.com for me. I don't know. I thought it would be something more weird. but they just, I was just too close to the forest to see the trees, and they were just, here you go, GeorgeLynch.com. I'm fucking genius, brilliant.
You said here's $500.
Yeah, I would pay them more if I had it. That's all I had.
George, I could listen to you tell stories all night. I really do hope.
Of course, that's one of my embellishment lies. I was telling you about it at the beginning of the interview.
Oh, that didn't happen?
No.
Hey, George, I mean, I thought maybe it did.
No, that wouldn't happen. What kind of company would do that? That's crazy.
You know, now that you say it, it makes sense. But people at home are probably confused too. He's putting on the baseball cap, which makes it time for him to go out.
Time to go.
Catch some
We should start that. We should start that company. That'd be cool.
Which company?
The naming company.
Oh, you and I will do it. We'll tell people what. Yeah, I like it.
We'll kick it around. 51%, 49. Controlling interest. Hello.
No, but listen, you're the talent.
I'm the brains. You're the brawn.
I think it's the other way around, George. Next time you're here, we're going to talk about your weightlifting years, because that's a whole nother thing.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, we didn't get into that. Yeah. George, you're an open book. We could do this forever, but I'm going to let you go. I appreciate it. Thank you, George.
All right, Jason. Love
Bye-bye.
talking to you, man. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.